Chapter 46. A Path Revealed. Fatigued and haggard, but with triumphant smiles, they sat around the fire, congratulating each other. Saphira crowed jubilantly, which startled the horses. Eragon stared at the flames. He was proud that they had covered roughly 60 leagues in 5 days. It was an impressive feat, even for a rider able to change mounts regularly. I'm outside of the Empire. It was a strange thought. He had been born in the Empire, lived his entire life under Galbatorix's rule, lost his closest friends and family to the king's servants, and had nearly died several times within his domain. Now Eragon was free. No more would he and Saphira have to dodge soldiers, avoid towns, or hide who they were. It was a bittersweet realization, for the cost had been the loss of his entire world. He looked at the stars in the gloaming sky, and though the thought of building a home in the safety of isolation appealed to him, he had witnessed too many wrongs committed in Galbatorix's name, from murder to slavery, to turn his back on the Empire. No longer was it just vengeance, for Rom's death as well as Garrow's, that drove him. As a rider, it was his duty to assist those without strength to resist Galbatorix's oppression. With a sigh, he abandoned his deliberation and observed the elf stretched out by Saphira. The fire's orange light gave her face a warm cast. Smooth shadows flickered under her cheekbones. As he stared, an idea slowly came to him. He could hear the thoughts of people and animals and communicate with them in that manner if he chose to, but it was something he had done infrequently except with Saphira. He always remembered Brom's admonishment not to violate someone's mind unless absolutely necessary. Save for the one time he had tried to probe Murtag's consciousness, he had refrained from doing so. Now, however, he wondered if it were possible to contact the elf in her comatose state. I might be able to learn from her memories why she remains like this, but if she recovers, would she forgive me for such an intrusion? Whether she does or not, I must try. She's been in this condition for almost a week. Without speaking of his intentions to Murtag or Saphira, he knelt by the elf and placed a palm on her brow. Eragon closed his eyes and extended a tendril of thought, like a probing finger, toward the elf's mind. He found it without difficulty. It was not fuzzy and filled with pain as he had anticipated, but lucid and clear, like a note from a crystal bell. Suddenly an icy dagger drove into his mind. Pain exploded behind his eyes with splashes of colour. He recoiled from the attack but found himself held in an iron grip, unable to retreat. Eragon fought as hard as he could and used every defence he could think of. The dagger stabbed into his mind again. He frantically threw his own barriers before it, blunting the attack. The pain was less excruciating than the first time, but it jarred his concentration. The elf took the opportunity to ruthlessly crush his defences. A stifling blanket pressed down on Eragon from all directions, smothering his thoughts. The overpowering force slowly contracted, squeezing the life out of him bit by bit. Though he held on, unwilling to give up, the elf tightened her relentless grip even more, so as to extinguish him like a snuffed candle. He desperately cried in the ancient language, Eka I frikai un shuatugul. I am a rider and friend. The deadly embrace did not loosen its hold, but its constriction halted, and surprise emanated from her. Suspicion followed a second later, but he knew she would believe him. He could not have lied in the ancient language. However, while he had said he was a friend, that did not mean he meant her no harm. For all she knew, Eragon believed himself to be her friend, making the statement true for him, though she might not consider him one. The ancient language does have its limitations, thought Eragon, hoping that the elf would be curious enough to risk freeing him. She was. The pressure lifted, and the barriers around her mind hesitantly lowered. The elf warily let their thoughts touch, like two wild animals meeting for the first time. A cold shiver ran down Eragon's side. Her mind was alien. It felt vast and powerful, weighted with memories of uncounted years. Dark thoughts loomed out of sight and touch, artifacts of her race that made him cringe when they brushed his consciousness. Yet through all the sensations shimmered a melody of wild, haunting beauty that embodied her identity. "What is your name?" she asked, speaking in the ancient language. Her voice was weary and filled with quiet despair. "Eragon. And yours?" Her consciousness lured him closer, inviting him to submerge himself in the lyric strains of her blood. He resisted the summons with difficulty, though his heart ached to accept it. For the first time he understood the fey attraction of elves. They were creatures of magic, unbound by the mortal laws of the land, and different from humans as dragons were from animals. Arya, why have you contacted me in this manner? Am I still a captive of the Empire? No, you are free, said Eragon. Though he knew only scattered words in the ancient language, he managed to convey, I was imprisoned in Gilead, like you, but I escaped and rescued you. In the 5 days since then, we've crossed the edge of the Haderach Desert and are now camped by the Boar Mountains. You've not stirred nor said a word in all that time. Ah, so it was Gilead. She paused. I know that my wounds were healed. At the time I did not understand why. Preparation for some new torture, I was certain. Now I realize it was you. Softly she added, even so, I have not risen, and you are puzzled. Yes. During my captivity, a rare poison, the Skilna Brag, was given to me, along with the drug to suppress my power. Every morning the antidote for the previous day's poison was administered to me, by force if I refused to take it. Without it, I will die within a few hours. That is why I lie in this trance. It slows the Skilna Brag's progress, though does not stop it. I contemplated waking for the purpose of ending my life and denying Galbatorix, but I refrained from doing so out of the hope that you might be an ally. Her voice dwindled off weakly. How long can you remain like this? Asked Eragon. For weeks, but I'm afraid I haven't that much time. This dormancy cannot restrain death forever. I can feel it in my veins even now. Unless I receive the antidote, I will succumb to the poison in 3 or 4 days. Where can the antidote be found? It exists only in 2 places outside of the Empire, with my own people and with the Varden. However, my home is beyond the reach of Dragonback. What about the Varden? We would have taken you straight to them, but we don't know where they are. I will tell you, if you give me your word that you will never reveal their location to Galbatorix or to anyone who serves him. In addition, you must swear that you have not deceived me in some manner and that you intend no harm to the elves, dwarves, Varden, or the race of dragons. What Arya asked for would have been simple enough if they had not been conversing in the ancient language. Eragon knew she wanted oaths more binding than life itself. Once made, they could never be broken. That weighed heavily on him as he gravely pledged his word in agreement. It is understood. A series of vertigo-inducing images suddenly flashed through his mind. He found himself riding along the Boar mountain range, travelling eastward many leagues. Eragon did his best to remember the route as craggy mountains and hills flashed past. He was heading south now, still following the mountains. Then everything wheeled abruptly and he entered a narrow, winding valley. It snaked through the mountains to the base of a frothy waterfall that pounded into a deep lake. The images stopped. It is far, said Arya, but do not let the distance dissuade you. When you arrive at the lake Costa Merna, at the end of the Beartooth River, take a rock, bang on the cliff next to the waterfall, and cry, I Varden Aberdu Shur Tu Gala Gatavanta. You will be admitted. You will be challenged, but do not falter no matter how perilous it seems. What should they give you for the poison? He asked. Her voice quavered, but then she regained her strength. Tell them to give me Tunavor's nectar. You must leave me now. I have expended too much energy already. Do not talk with me again unless there is no hope of reaching the Varden. If that is the case, there is information I must impart to you so the Varden will survive. Farewell, Eragon, rider of dragons. My life is in your hands. Arya withdrew from their contract. The unearthly strains that had echoed across their link were gone. Eragon took a shuddering breath and forced his eyes open. Murtagh and Saphira stood on either side of him, watching with concern. Are you all right? Asked Murtagh. You've been kneeling here for almost 15 minutes. I have? Asked Eragon, blinking. Yes, and grimacing like a pained gargoyle, commented Saphira dryly. Eragon stood, wincing as his cramped knees stretched. I talked with Arya. Murtagh frowned quizzically as if to inquire if he had gone mad. Eragon explained, the elf. That's her name. And what is it that ails her? Asked Saphira impatiently. Eragon swiftly told them of his entire discussion. How far away are the Varden? Asked Murtagh. I'm not exactly sure, confessed Eragon. From what she showed me, I think it's even farther than from here to Gilead. And we're supposed to cover that in 3 or 4 days? Demanded Murtagh angrily. It took us 5 long days to get you here. What do you want to do? Kill the horses? They're exhausted as it is. But if we do nothing, she'll die. If it's too much for the horses, Saphira can fly ahead with Arya and me. At least we would get to the Varden in time. You could catch up with us in a few days." Murtagh grunted and crossed his arms. "Of course. Murtagh the pack animal. Murtagh the horse leader. I should have remembered that's all I'm good for nowadays. Oh, and let's not forget, every soldier in the Empire is searching for me now because you couldn't defend yourself and I had to go and save you. Yes, I suppose I'll just follow your instructions and bring up the horses in the rear like a good servant." Eragon was bewildered by the sudden venom in Murtagh's voice. "What's wrong with you? I'm grateful for what you did. There's no reason to be angry with me. I didn't ask you to accompany me nor to rescue me from Gilead. You chose that. I haven't forced you to do anything." "Oh, not openly so. What else could I do but help you with the Razak? And then later, at Gilead, how could I have left with a clear conscience? The problem with you," said Murtagh, poking Eragon in the chest, "is that you're so totally helpless you force everyone to take care of you." The words stung Eragon's pride. He recognised a grain of truth in them. "Don't touch me," he growled. Murtagh laughed, a harsh note in his voice. "Or what? You'll punch me? You couldn't hit a brick wall." He went to shove Eragon again, but Eragon grabbed his arm and struck him in the stomach. "I said don't touch me." Murtagh doubled over, swearing. Then he yelled and launched himself at Eragon. They fell in a tangle of arms and legs, pounding on each other. Eragon kicked at Murtagh's hip, missed and grazed the fire. Sparks and burning embers scattered through the air. They scrabbled across the ground, trying to get leverage. Eragon managed to get his feet under Murtagh's chest and kicked him mightily. Murtagh flew upside down over Eragon's head, landing flat on his back with a solid thump. Murtagh's breath whooshed out. He rolled stiffly to his feet, then wheeled to face Eragon, panting heavily. They charged each other once more. Saphira's tail slapped between them, accompanied by a deafening roar. Eragon ignored her and tried to jump over her tail, but a taloned paw caught him in midair and flung him to the ground. "Enough!" He futilely tried to push Saphira's muscled leg off his chest and saw that Murtagh was likewise pinned. Saphira roared again, snapping her jaws. She swung her head over Eragon and glared at him. "You of all people should know better, fighting like a starving dogs over a scrap of meat. What would Brom say?" Eragon felt his cheeks burn and averted his eyes. He knew what Brom would have said. Saphira held them to the ground, letting them simmer, then said to Eragon pointedly, "Now, if you don't want to spend the night under my foot, you will politely ask Murtagh what is troubling him." She snaked her head down over to Murtagh and stared down at him with an impassive blue eye. "And tell him that I won't stand for insults from either of you." "Won't you let us up?" complained Eragon. "No." Eragon reluctantly turned his head toward Murtagh, tasting blood on the side of his mouth. Murtagh avoided his eyes and looked up at the sky. "Well, is she going to get off us?" "No, not unless we talk. She wants me to ask you what's really the problem," said Eragon, embarrassed. Saphira growled an affirmative and continued to stare at Murtagh. It was impossible for him to escape her piercing glare. Finally he shrugged, muttering something under his breath. Saphira's claws tightened on his chest, and her tail whistled through the air. Murtagh shot her an angry glance, then grudgingly said louder, "I told you before, I don't want to go near the Varden." Eragon frowned. Was that all that was the matter? Don't want to, or can't? Murtagh tried to shove Saphira's leg off him, then gave up with a curse. "Don't want to. They'll expect things from me that I can't deliver." "Did you steal something from them?" "I wish it were that simple." Eragon rolled his eyes, exasperated. "Well, what is it then? Did you kill someone important or bed the wrong woman?" "No, I was born," said Murtagh cryptically. He pushed at Saphira again. This time she released them both. They got to their feet under her watchful eye and brushed dirt from their backs. "You're avoiding the question," Eragon said, dabbing his split lip. "So what?" spat Murtagh as he stomped to the edge of the camp. After a minute he sighed. "It doesn't matter why I'm in this predicament, but I can tell you that the Varden wouldn't welcome me even if I came bearing the king's head. Oh, they might greet me nicely enough and let me into their councils, but trust me? Never. And if I were to arrive under less fortuitous circumstances, like the present ones, they'd likely clap me in irons." "Won't you tell me what this is about?" asked Eragon. "I've done things I'm not proud of too, so it's not as if I'm going to pass judgment." Murtagh shook his head slowly, eyes glistening. "It isn't like that. I haven't done anything to deserve this treatment, though it would have been easier to atone for if I had. No, my only wrongdoing is existing in the first place. He stopped and took a shaky breath. You see, my father, a sharp hiss from Saphira cut him off abruptly. Look! They followed her gaze westward. Murtag's face paled. Demons above and below. A league or so away, parallel to the mountain range, was a column of figures marching east. The line of troops, 100 strong, stretched for nearly a mile. Dust billowed from their heels, their weapons glinted in the dying light. A standard-bearer rode before them in a black chariot, holding aloft a crimson banner. It's the Empire, said Eragon tiredly. They found us somehow. Saphira poked her head over his shoulder and gazed at the column. Yes, but those are Urgals, not men, said Murtag. How can you tell? Murtag pointed at the standard. That flag bears the personal symbol of an Urgal chieftain. He's a ruthless brute, given to violent fits and insanity. You've met him? Murtag's eyes tightened. Once, briefly. I still have scars from that encounter. These Urgals might not have been sent here for us, but I'm sure we've been seen by now, and that they will follow us. The chieftain isn't the sort to let a dragon escape his grasp, especially if he's heard about Gilead. Eragon hurried to the fire and covered it with dirt. We have to flee. You don't want to go to the Varden, but I have to take Arya to them before she dies. Here's a compromise. Come with me until I reach the lake Cost the Myrna, then go your own way. Murtag hesitated. Eragon added quickly. If you leave now, in sight of the column, Urgals will follow you. And then where will you be? Facing them alone? Very well, said Murtag, tossing his saddlebags over Tornak's flanks. But when we near the Varden, I will leave. Eragon burned to question Murtag further, but not with Urgals so near. He gathered his belongings and saddled Snowfire. Saphira fanned her wings, took off in a rush, and circled above. She kept guard over Murtag and Eragon as they left camp. What direction shall I fly? She asked. East, along the Boars. Stilling her wings, Saphira rose on an updraft and teetered on the pillar of warm air, hovering in the sky over the horses. I wonder why the Urgals are here. Maybe they were sent to attack the Varden. Then we should try and warn them, he said, guiding Snowfire past half-visible obstacles. As the night deepened, the Urgals faded into the gloom behind them.